Hi, I am Daniel Jude Miller, and I am very excited to be with you here today. And I'll tell you why. It's because I get to talk about books. Books are my favorite subject. I could talk about them all day long, and I'm very excited to talk about them with you here today. And you wonder, why is he so excited about this? Well, it's because I am the person that created all these books. And I'm also the person that created all these books. But I always start every presentation by showing this book. And the reason I show this book is because I did not create it. It's true, I did not make this book. It was made by a boy I met called Milan. I met him at a school visit a few years ago, and the reason I show this book every time to begin a presentation is because Milan wrote this whole story by himself. It's called Pete and the Acorns, and it's about a chipmunk and a lion that go on a quest to find a king. But also Milan did all the drawings for this book. And then he went on a little website, some of you might have heard of before, called Amazon, and his parents ordered him one box of his story. Now here's the most important part of what I'm telling you. Milan did all the writing, he did all the drawings, he did all the work himself, but guess what grade he was in when he did it? He was in the first grade, which means if I can make books and Milan can make books, then that means all of you watching this can make books. All you need is a good idea, a little patience, and you can create your own story as well. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, as I show you how I create my books, hopefully that will help you and will help you make your own stories. So let's get started with all the people that work at my company. First, we have the author. Now he's in charge of writing all the stories. Next, we have this guy, the illustrator. He's responsible for doing all the drawings for the books. Third, we have this fellow, the graphic designer. And that's just a fancy word for the person that takes the words and the pictures and puts them together to make the book. Now I actually have a fourth person who works for me. And he's the boringest of all my employees, so I don't even give him a photo. He's called the publisher. And his job is to call on the phone to stores and libraries and try to sell the books. But the fifth guy who works for me is my favorite of all my employees. And guess where he is today? Right here. It's me. In fact, actually all of them are me. But this is my favorite job of all, and I'll tell you why, because it gives me a chance to meet students or talk to students, or most importantly, help students like all of you become better artists and authors. And that's why it's my favorite of all my 5 jobs. But everything I do usually takes place here. This is my office. Okay, I'm very lucky. I work from home all the time. So I wake up in the morning and I walk down the hall about 2 doors. I never hit any traffic. I don't have to look for a parking spot, and boom, I'm already at work. Now, if you look really close, you'll notice what I'm wearing. I have on my pajamas. The truth is, I leave my pajamas on most of the day. And the reason is very simple. Because I have so many different jobs to do, I like to be comfortable while I do them. Okay, that's where all the writing and all the drawing and all the creating takes place. But it started a long time ago for me. My journey started when I was around the same age as most of you. Long before I was making books, definitely before I was writing, I found my first love. My first love was art. And I can prove that I've been doing it for a long time because my mom took some pictures of me creating my first creative pieces. So this first one, I believe, is from around the 2nd grade. Back then I used to like to finger paint. Okay, that's my cat, Puma. This next one I think is from the 1st grade. A little advice, if you want to make a rainbow really fast, just put all the crayons in one hand and you can do it in one motion. Now this next one is a little bit embarrassing, but it's also the first photo ever taken of me creating art. And I want to share it with you, but I have to ask you to promise, please don't laugh at this. It's a little bit embarrassing, so please try not to laugh. Okay, be honest, how many of you laughed? Probably everybody, right? Okay, that's not real, okay? Obviously, that is not a real photo of me making art. It's my real head, but it's a cartoon body. But the truth is, I have been making art for a very, very long time, and I can prove it because I do have the real drawings I used to do when I was in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. Back then, I used to like to draw things like helicopters and airplanes. Sometimes I would do dragons and dinosaurs. There were times that I would use my imagination and create stories where knights and skeletons were fighting in outer space. And every once in a while, I like to work with pastels. Those are those chalky, messy crayons that get all over your fingers and sometimes on your clothes. And I was drawing all the time. I was practicing and practicing and gradually getting better and better until I started doing sports cartoons. And eventually was creating my own characters. This guy here is a ninja dinosaur, and ninja dinosaurs need people to fight. So I gave him a whole bunch of enemies to do battle with. But the more I practiced, the better I was getting. And soon I knew how to do faces and make them look almost realistic. Now at that time, I wanted to be a comic book artist. So we all know who this guy is. All right, I wanted to be a comic book artist really, really bad. Now if you look really, really close, in the middle of this drawing, and there's the two things that are the most important things you need to put on all of your drawings. First, your name, so everyone remembers who did the drawing. Number two, the date, so you can remember when you did it. All right, so if you look really close, you'll notice that that date says that I was 12 years old when I did this drawing. Now, everyone always asks me, when I was 12, did I trace this Batman? And the answer is no, I did not trace it because I have never ever traced a drawing in my life. And I'll tell you why. Okay, because you don't learn anything when you trace. You never learn anything if you're tracing things. Now it's okay to copy because when you're copying, you put the thing you want to copy here and you put the paper here. And when you do that, you'll make some mistakes. And that's a good thing. Because when you make mistakes while you're learning, you'll learn how to correct those mistakes. And that's how you actually become a better artist. Okay, so that is the most important piece of advice I could give anyone trying to get better and become a better artist is never trace anything because you don't learn anything that way. The second piece of advice that I can give you if you want to get better is that if you practice drawing a little, you're going to get a little bit better. But if you practice drawing a lot, you are going to get a whole lot better. Trust me, there are no secrets, there are no tricks, and there's no magic. Okay, it's just a process of practicing and practicing and practicing. And I promise you that if you put in a lot of practice, you will become a much better artist. So at that time, like I said, I wanted to do comic books, so I would draw things like Wolverine. But then I went to a special school, okay? I went to a special school that only does art. All day long, you paint and you draw and you sculpt and you get to use cameras and computers, and they teach you how to do more complicated images like this. And every day I would go to class and they would give us an assignment. They would give us a project to do. And this morning they gave us the project to come up with a superhero that got all his superpowers from a strange source. So I did a superhero that gets all his strength from drinking coffee. I know, very strange. Okay, but that's how art school works. They would give us projects and then you would finish the project. So these here are the last two drawings I did before I graduated. And you'll notice that they look a little bit different, and I'll tell you why. It's because I had gotten rid of all my paint and paintbrushes, and I'd switched to doing most of my drawings in the computer. All right, and I'm going to show you in a little while how I do all of my drawings like that. But now I was done with school. Okay, I needed to go find a job. And I got a job here in the Empire State Building, the second tallest building in New York City. I actually worked right in that window there that I'm pointing the arrow at. I worked at the 65th floor of the Empire State Building. And I used to do all sorts of drawings for a company like this. Drawings that they would take and they would put into newspapers and magazines and advertisements. Things about business, things about money, things about traveling, things about computers, things about boring subjects. Okay, I like to draw. And I like drawing things like skeletons and superheroes and monsters. I didn't like drawing things about insurance. But guess what? When I was at that job, I had to draw 10,000 of these little drawings before I realized that this was not the job for me. It was not, because I had an idea. I wanted to become a writer. But here's the problem. I was already an adult and I had never written a story before. So I had to start teaching myself how to become an author. So I started at the beginning, which is the 3 parts of a story. And most of you probably already know about this, that the real 3 parts of every story are the beginning, the middle, and the end. And that is true. But when I first started learning how to write, I had just seen the Goosebumps movie, the first one. Okay, and in that movie, if you watch the whole thing, at the very end, the author R.L. Stine has a different 3 parts of a story. He actually believes that a really good story consists of the beginning, the middle, and the twist. And I like his version much, much better, and I'll tell you why. Because the ending is the most important part of your story. Okay, that's the part people remember. That's the part they tell their friends about. And that's the part that makes them want to read your next story. So here's a fun fact. Every book that I've ever written, I've written backwards. I always write the ending first, then the middle, and then the beginning. It's true, the ending is so important that I want to make sure that I know exactly what's going to happen before I start any of the rest of the story. But every story I write starts out like this, a big jumbly mess. Okay, it's on a piece of paper and things are crossed out and things are scribbled on, and it's okay that it's messy because no one is supposed to see your thoughts or see your ideas while you're working on them. So it's okay that they don't look very good. And then I rewrite it, and I rewrite it, and I rewrite it. And students always ask me, how many times do you have to fix a book before it's finished? I don't know the answer. It's different for every book. Some books I've had to write 10 times. Sometimes 20 times, sometimes even 50 times. It's true, but I can tell you that I guarantee that none of you can write the perfect story on the first try because no one has ever done that. It's normal to write it and then fix it and make it better, and then write it again and fix it and make it better. And gradually, over time, you get a better and a better and a better story. Now, where do ideas come from? I can tell you ideas come from all different places for me. Some of them come from the people that I know. Some of them come from the things that I see. And some of them come out of nowhere. But I can tell you that the best place you should look for ideas is the things around you. Okay? Or the things you know the most about. I lived in New York City, so you'll see in a second that I've written a bunch of books about New York City because I know a lot about it. But I don't know anything about horses, so I will never write a book about that. You might know a lot about basketball or dancing or music, so the best place to look for a good idea is the thing you already know a lot about. So this next story I'm going to tell you here is actually somewhat of a true story, and I'll tell you where the idea came from. The name of the book is called Everybody Wake Up, and one day I was at my friend's house. She has a tiny brand new baby and a 2-year-old little girl. And one day, while I was sitting on the couch with them talking, the 2-year-old snuck up to the baby while she was sleeping in the crib. She poked her head in, took a deep breath, and screamed, "Everybody wake up!" right in the baby's face. And the baby woke up crying, and the mom was furious, and I busted out laughing because I thought the whole situation was very, very funny. So the idea for this book came from seeing that happen, and it gave me an entire story. All right, so I'm going to read this book for you now, But here's what I want you to do. As I'm reading the story part, guess what? You get to do the yelling part, the everybody wake up, so that we make sure that no one in your classroom, no one in your school, or no one in your house is sleeping during the day. All right, so let's get started. Everybody Wake Up by me, Daniel Jude Miller. The sun arrived very early and sent its warm rays out in every possible direction. Some of those rays went through the window of a cute girl resting snug in her bed. When the light gently brushed against her cheek, she knew that it was time to rise and shine. It was time to wake up. Sunny greeted the new day with a great big stretch and an even bigger smile. It was time to get started, and today was going to be amazing. She slipped on her favorite dress, combed her golden curls, and grabbed her book bag. Now she was ready for another beautiful morning. On the way to the kitchen, Sunny passed her little sister's room. The tiny baby was curled up under her blanket, surrounded by toys and sleeping peacefully. Babies sleep way too much, she thought. They miss out on all the best parts of the day. Sunny grabbed hold of the crib, took a deep breath, and shouted, "Everybody wake up!" And the baby was awake. Sunny skipped down the hall and discovered her mommy and daddy still in bed. They looked comfortable but were snoring too loudly to hear the birds outside. Uh-oh, she worried. Their alarm clock must have broken. They're going to be late for work. Sunny leaned close to her father, took a deep breath, and exclaimed, "Everybody wake up!" And now her parents could be on time for work. As Sunny continued on, she realized that the triplets were still missing. When she searched their room, she found all three under the covers and ignoring the daylight. "This isn't good," she declared. "The school bus could be here any minute, and they wouldn't want to miss it." Sunny tiptoed inside, took a deep breath, and hollered, "Everybody wake up!" And the socks flew all over the room. One even landed in her brother's mouth. Gross. Who would draw something like that? Embarrassing. Sunny hopped down the stairs but stopped short when she found all the family pets unaware that the sun had risen. The dog and the fish were in dreamland and the cats were both snoozing. "It's almost 8 o'clock, she gasped. "It's time to run and chase and jump." Sunny shut her eyes tight, took a deep breath, and yelled, "Everybody wake up!" And the fish popped right out of the fish tank. Before heading out to school, Sunny spent some time exploring in the garden. Right there under a big rock were all sorts of bugs that failed to hear the rooster crow. "What a shame," she whispered. "There are so many pretty flowers to smell. Why should butterflies have all the fun?" Sunny bent close to the ground, took a deep breath, and screeched, "Everybody wake up!" And the bugs bounced, bounced across the morning lawn. At school, Sunny noticed a kindergarten class where the children were supposed to be alert. Surprisingly, their books were shut, their pencils were still, and their heads were down. "This is silly," she chuckled. "How can you learn anything with your eyes closed?" Sunny crept up to the door, took a deep breath, and announced, "Everybody wake up!" And the pencils and the pens and the crayons flew all over the classroom. After school, Sunny and her mom stopped to visit Grandpa and his friends. Everyone was gathered in the activities room, but there was no activity. "What time is it?" Sunny teased. "It's playtime." She marched to the center of the room, took a deep breath, and howled, "Everybody wake up!" And poor Grandma's wig popped right off her head. That other guy's teeth popped out too. Sunny's mom stopped to check on her brother who worked at the movie theater. While they were chatting, Sunny took a peek at what was playing and wasn't happy with what she saw. "Oh my," she fretted, "the film is almost over and everyone is about to miss the ending." Sunny nibbled her candy, took a deep breath, and bellowed, "Everybody wake up!" And the popcorn and the nachos and the soda spilled all over the theater. Sometimes it was nice to take a shortcut through the zoo. Most of the animals there were active and excited, but the bats weren't enjoying the day at all. How sad, Sunny sighed. Weather as splendid as this should never, ever be wasted. She pressed her nose against the glass, took a deep breath, and cried, "Everybody wake up!" And the bats were no longer nocturnal. 2 blocks from home, Sunny spotted a very quiet construction site. The equipment wasn't moving because the men were taking siestas right in the middle of their shifts. "Is this normal?" Sunny questioned. "Nothing will ever get built this way." She picked up a megaphone, took a deep breath, and shrieked, "Everybody wake up!" And now the building could be completed. Later that evening, Sunny ate dinner, took a bath, and brushed her teeth. She was exhausted from a long day and needed to rest for tomorrow. She climbed into bed, pulled the sheets up to her chin, and settled in for a good night's sleep. She had just drifted off when the door creaked open. There were deep breaths and "Everybody wake up!" Everyone had figured out where Sunny lived. The construction workers, the people from the movie theater, the bats, and even that little tiny snail. And they showed her what it feels like to be woken up like that. Sunny just leaves people alone when they're sleeping now. The end. Okay? How was that? That was fun. But it's going to get even better, and I'll tell you why. Because every book I do, I like to hide a little secret in there. So it gives you something to look for the second and the third and the fourth time you read the story. Okay, so in this story, here's the secret. If you think back, how many babies were in this story? 1. How many parents? 2. How many brothers? 3. So you see what's happening. This book is secretly a counting book, and it counts all the way up to the number 10. Okay, so when you look at this book the next time, I want you to find the hidden numbers. Now, they're not on the pages where people are sleeping. Okay, there's nothing on those pages. Only the pages where she's waking people or animals up. Okay, and I'll give you an example. All right, if you look at this first one here, it's the bats and they're all sleeping. There's nothing to find there. But when you flip the page, I'll give you a second to look around and find the hidden number 9. Okay, see at the top, there's a number 9, and that's because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bats. All right, now every page where she's waking people up, there's a hidden number that tells you how many people are on the page. Some of them are easy, like this bats one, but they're not all that easy. Okay, some of them are actually very difficult, and the number's really tiny. So it'll be your job to go back and find all the other hidden numbers. So now let's get to the question that I get asked the most. How do I draw like that? Now the answer I already told you. The answer is a lot of practice. Hours and hours and days and years of practice. But all my drawings are done with this. Okay? With this regular Sharpie marker. I don't use any special equipment. I don't have any special paper. I have regular old paper, white paper, and this Sharpie marker. And I'm going to show you how I do it. Okay? I start with these little drawings. They're called sketches. All right? And I start to figure out what a character looks like or how they stand. Or in this case, it's a blob. I want to figure out how many eyeballs he should have. All right? When I finally like the character, I take him, and I put them into the computer. Because remember I said a long time ago that I do most of the work in the computer. So once I like the drawing and it's nice and clean and I'm ready to color it, I put it into the computer where I color in the background and then the characters, and then lastly I add special effects, which for the Monsters in Manhattan book is the ghost fog that comes out when the monster is present. All right, and then I start the next page. I start with my sketches again. This is a dragon. I figure out what he looks like or maybe how he stands. And when I'm perfectly happy with him, I put him into the computer and start the whole process again. I color in the background, and then I color in the characters, and then lastly, I add the ghost fog. Okay, so it's always the same, no matter which book I'm working on. It starts out with a regular pen, and then all my coloring gets done in the computer. Now, we don't have time to read the whole Monsters book because that one is a little bit long, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story. All right, it's called Monsters in Manhattan, and the idea came from when I used to work in New York City and I used to work in the Empire State Building. By going around and traveling all around the city, I got an idea about what if monsters lived at all the tourist attractions and they lived at all the special places New Yorkers like to go. So in this story, it's about a boy named Mike, and he lives in Queens, which is a part of New York City where I used to live. And he's very excited for winter break. He has all sorts of plans, but he also has a big problem. Yes, his cousin Mary Lou from Kalamazoo is coming to visit for the holidays. Now, normally it's a good thing when your family visits, but not in Mike's case, because Mary Lou is the worst thing that anyone can be. She is a bully, and she's going to ruin all of Mike's plans. So he comes up with an idea. He's going to take her to New York City. He's going to show her all the special landmarks, but he's also going to introduce her to the monsters and hopefully scare her away. So they go on the subway where they meet the trolls with their long fingernails that they use to hang off the outside of the subway cars. And they meet a two-headed goblin that lives under the hot dog cart and uses his long sticky lizard tongue to try to steal your lunch. And they meet a blob that lives at the Museum of Natural History. That's the museum that keeps all the dinosaur bones. But blobs don't have any bones, so he waits there hoping that some will fall into his slimy body. And they meet a giant that lives at Rockefeller Center. That's the place where they put the big giant Christmas tree every year. And the giant comes to steal the giant star off the top of the giant tree so that he can make giant earrings for his giant wife. It's true. And they meet fairies. Fairies are actually nice, but the problem is they're leaving New York City, and you have to watch your fingers because sometimes they can bite. Now what happened was I only planned on doing one Monsters in Manhattan book. So sometimes you'll get an idea, but it'll keep growing and growing and growing. So accidentally I had made too many characters, so I had to start a second book. And in part 2, it's now the summer. And Mike is real excited for summer vacation. But unfortunately, he has a bigger, meaner, and sweatier problem. Mary Lou's brother, Jimbo Joe. Now he's come to stay for the entire summer vacation, which is terrible. So Mike has only one choice. He has to go back to New York City and show Jimbo Joe new things and new monsters and hopefully scare him away too. So they go to the Museum of Art where they meet the goblin that tries to pull people into the paintings. And they meet zombies that ride the bus. What's the only thing zombies think about? Yep, brains. So they drive around the city all day looking for big, delicious brains to eat. And they meet vampires. Now normally vampires like to drink blood, but not in New York City. There they only like one thing, pizza. And they meet a sea monster, the biggest of all the monsters in Manhattan and the champion of the lakes, the oceans, and the rivers. And finally, they meet a mummy that lives at the Statue of Liberty and gets woken up by the 4th of July fireworks. But the story's still not finished. Sometimes, again, little ideas keep growing and growing and growing, and this little idea is still growing with me. So I've written parts 3 and parts 4, and in the next couple of years, there'll be even more monsters to join the ones from parts 1 and parts 2. But the book I want to finish with is my favorite book of most of the ones I've written. I love this book, and I'll tell you why I love it for a very, very special reason. Okay, I said a lot of ideas come from a lot of different places. Well, the idea for this book came from someone I know, from my real son. Okay, because he's very special because he was born on the same day and in the same hospital as his best friend. It's true, but they are very, very different boys. They have the same birthday, but they are very, very different. Okay, one of them loves Halloween. He loves it so much that his room is decorated like this all year round. He's got a little graveyard, he's got spiders that hang from the ceiling, and ghosts on the wall. But his best friend doesn't like Halloween at all. He loves Christmas. All right, so this book is about two boys that share a birthday, but share nothing else. And they have to decide if they should stay best friends even though they're so different. So I'll show you a little bit about this book. There they are back in the hospital when they were first born. They didn't know each other in the hospital, but they would meet a few years later when they went to the same kindergarten class. And there they found out that they shared the same birthday. So they were very excited and they instantly became best friends. But I truly, truly believe that somewhere back in that hospital, my son must have been touched by the haunted hand of Halloween, while at the same time, the other boy must have felt the festive finger of Christmas, because they're always thinking about these two holidays. They both have lots of costumes, but my sons are all spooky and scary. Meanwhile, the Christmas kids' costumes are always Christmas sweaters or Santa Claus. Every day they eat breakfast together at school and they eat lunch together and they play after school, but one is always talking about horror movies and the other one is always talking about things like gingerbread houses. And every year we have a birthday party for them, and we have a cake that's decorated half with spooky, scary things and half with festive holiday things. And everyone always asks me, does my son really cut the cake with a chainsaw? And the answer is no, he doesn't. Nobody wants cake that was been cut with a chainsaw. But I will tell you that he has a toy chainsaw that he painted to look like it's real, and he uses it with some of his spooky clown costumes. Okay? So that's just a little bit about that book. Hopefully you can go look at my read alouds and you can find more about that and you can see the whole story. But in that book, there's also a secret. All right, that book is about Halloween and Christmas, two very good holidays, but there's so many other good holidays out there and I didn't want them to not be included. So your job when you see that whole book is to find the other holidays. And I'll give you an example. Okay, here's an example. If you look on this page, you see the Christmas kid and the Halloween boy, they're getting ready and they're wrapping gifts. And if you look really close, you might notice that there's someone hiding in this image. I'll give you a second, but if you look right there behind the Christmas kid's present, you'll notice there's a leprechaun. Okay, a leprechaun for St. Patrick's Day. Now, somewhere hidden in the rest of the book is a Cupid for Valentine's Day, a turkey for Thanksgiving, an Uncle Sam for 4th of July, and there's even a groundhog for Groundhog's Day. There's a whole bunch of hidden little characters that give you something to look for the next time you see the book. All right, so now we talked about how I write the stories and I have to practice and rewrite over and over and over again. And we talked about how I do the drawings, I do sketches and gradually make them better and better and better. Okay, we talked about how I started drawing from when I was very young. And we talked about 3 or 4 of the books that I've done. And I hope that all of this information inspires you to go right now and think of your own ideas and start doing your own drawings and create your own books, okay? Because we all have a good idea in us and we can all create a book. And if you have a great idea, send it to me, okay? On this page, I'm gonna give you a link. It's called the Page O Fun. It's on my website and it's got tons of projects that can help you become a better writer, projects that can help you become a better author, and just some fun ones. Okay, so check out that page, and if you do any of the projects, send it to me because I would love to see them. I hope you had fun today, and I hope you go back and start creating Have a good day.